writer Richard Johnson and 24/7 Sports Brad Crawford. And gentlemen, this was supposed to be a easy day for us. There were not supposed to be any upsets, but instead we get upsets left and right. And Brad, I'll start with you. How shocked are you, and what do you think is going to happen to Tennessee's ranking after the way they played against Arkansas?
The greatest regular season in sports, fellas. This is why we love it so much, man. Crazy day, 3 top 10s lose. Tennessee's got, had a chance to be in the top 3 tomorrow morning had they beat Arkansas on the road. Now probably falling to 6 or 7. Alabama lost. They won't be inside the top 3. You had Missouri get blown out by A&M. Michigan lost on the road. So the biggest shock was obviously Bama, but Tennessee losing in Fayetteville was a big surprise because Vols were a 2-touchdown favorite in this game.
They were two touchdown favorites, Richard, and you have all these weapons that we've seen to start the season, and they just really laid an egg. Was that more of the inability of Josh Heupel in this offense, or Arkansas's game plan for shutting down Tennessee?
No, I think it speaks to what Arkansas was able to pull off in this game, to be honest with you. Taylor Green gets knocked out of this game, comes back in, can't really move, basically on one leg, and they put Singleton in at quarterback. Arkansas has had problems finishing. They could not finish against Oklahoma State. They kind of had that game in hand a few weeks ago and let it slip. So for them to finish in this game in a home spot, rush the field, massive night for the Pigs, it's a lot of fun for them. And I think Sam Pittman, a guy who came into this season, in a lot of people's opinions, coaching for his job, this is massive. People didn't know how was it going to work with Bobby Petrino back, calling the plays, all that kind of stuff. Well, seems like there's enough cohesion. And B-Mac, for Tennessee, where are the offensive playmakers for Tennessee catching the ball? Squirrel White had 7 catches, but he ain't going nowhere, 38 yards.
Yep, and one thing we know about Tennessee's offense, they're very entertaining to watch. But what happens when you're not getting the splash plays in the passing game? Can you do it the generic way? And today we saw them struggle. They did hit a 30 or 40-yard pass, but outside of that, Arkansas's secondary did a great job keeping everything in front of them and tackling the catch. And one thing I noticed about Arkansas defensively, number one, this was their best defensive performance yet this season, and they needed to have that to be able to pull off this upset. But going into this ball game, Tennessee in the second quarter, they were the best offense in FBS and second quarter points scored. That's where they really blow open the scoreboard against the opposing teams. Guess how many points they scored in today's matchup in the second quarter? 0. That kept Arkansas afloat for 4 quarters. And then their defense got the timely stops late in the fourth quarter that gave their offense that one extra possession they needed to cash in on that walk-off touchdown. So collectively a great performance for Arkansas, but if you look at their defense, what they did today, clearly they outkicked their coverage and they needed to do so.
Yeah, they knew what time was quickly.
Also, at the end, that ball has to go in.
Oh, yeah. What are we?
It has to go in the end zone. Throw it up, son.
When I saw that, I was like, that is inexperience showing on the biggest display, because somebody who's a junior, they don't make that. They don't make that decision. Somebody or a team that made questionable decisions, right, on this Saturday, Alabama, as they fall to Vanderbilt, snapping a 23-game winning streak for Bama and the first win for Vanderbilt against an AP top team, or number 1 team, excuse me. So now Bama has all this juice, right, after beating Georgia. Everybody's saying it's one of the best games we've seen in years. And then you get outplayed by Diego Pavia and this Commodores team that said, look, we don't care if you're Bama, Brad. We're coming, and we're going to show you that we're nothing to be messed with.
Vanderbilt never trailed in this game. How crazy is that? Jumped out to a 2-touchdown lead. Jalen Milroe threw the pick 6 early in the first quarter. And, man, from then on, it was just Vanderbilt dominating the line of scrimmage, doubled up Alabama time possession. I mean, this was a 5-point game at the end, but Vandy pretty much dominated the top-ranked team in the country, coming off college football's best win of the year. So after last week, man, Kalen DeBoer was probably the National Coach of the Year frontrunner, and now you have a segment of the Bama fan base is just like, man, what happened in Nashville? So I am shocked at this result. It's certainly one of the biggest upsets, I think, in SEC history, if not college football history. And the 12-team playoff for Bama now gets a little tricky because they still got to go to Tennessee, still got to go to LSU. and there's some more tough games on that schedule too. So tough loss for the Crimson Tide today.
B-Mac, Richard, you go ahead.
Yeah, to Brad's point, Vanderbilt dominated Alabama. Like, don't get this twisted. They were able to run on Alabama. I am still shocked that they were able to do that. They were able to get the perimeter. There were so many just undisciplined plays by Alabama's defense trying to chase around Diego Pavia and the different ways that Vanderbilt goes horizontal and was able to get success in this game. And I think, to me, the embodiment is at the very, very end of this game. You've got an Alabama defender kicking the ball, laying on the ground, and getting a 15-yard penalty. Undisciplined. It was just totally undisciplined from Alabama in all phases.
Yeah, it felt like they were asleep at the wheel to start this ball game off. And I said this, post game of that game, it felt like the emotions that they had to showcase and let out against Georgia. They were fatigued coming to the ball game. They didn't have the juice. And that was an emotional-driven game last week. We all were tired watching it, but we were elated because it was such an entertaining ball game, and it felt like they were emotionless coming into this game. And guess what? Vandy, they can care less. They applauded those issues. To your point, they jumped out 23 points in the first half, and when Alabama was fighting back, guess what? Vandy made the plays they needed to make. Fourth down situation late in the ball game, 4th and 1, took a shot, scored a touchdown. Alabama came back, scored another touchdown. Vandy offensively needed to seal the deal. Alabama could not get another stop. That was huge for Vandy, and this is something that, can maybe jumpstart a change of course in their season under a new coaching regime, and not to mention the players that are buying into the system.
Yeah, this is a game-changing win for a program looking to be on the rise and get respected, because Nick Saban a couple weeks ago said the only place that's not hard to play in the SEC, Vanderbilt, because you have more fans than they do, and it didn't matter. I don't know how many Alabama fans were there, but hey, Kalen DeBoer is there now. Nick Saban is not, and Vandy has defeated Alabama. And one thing that I'm interested in, Richard, I'm curious your perspective. How far do you think Bama is going to drop? Because they didn't get blown out, but this was a huge, huge upset.
I mean, I don't know how you have Alabama in your top 5 after this. Guys, I'm not precious with my rankings, right? I'm only precious with my rankings after Thanksgiving weekend when it really matters. So for now, knock them out of top 5. A top 5 team does not go into Vanderbilt and get, frankly, physically dominated for 60 minutes. So yeah, they had the best win in college football last week. I agree. But that was last week. This is this week. What you put out on tape for the entire world to see is not emblematic of a top 5 team. So you got to go.
Okay, they're out of the top 5. B-Mac, I'm thinking they might fall out of the top 10.
That's not going to happen. That's a bit of a stretch.
Okay.
I think they will be in the top 5, and the reason why is because if you look at who the 5th team is right now, is UGA. So you're telling me you're going to drop Alabama out of number 1, deserving, but you're going to put them behind UGA, a team they just beat. Yes, it was a close game towards the end.
That is why.
But for 3 quarters, they dominated that ball game.
But
for 3 quarters, they dominated that ball game, right? So it's going to be very, very intriguing to see how they handle this, because I can see it either direction, either side. If they're outside the top 5, I can see that. But if they're 5th, I can see that as well.
Yeah, I don't have this hard and fast international law that you can't put a team who lost to another team, but I don't care. I saw what I saw today from both of those teams, and yes, that 4th quarter for me last week looms very large with how Georgia was able to take the lead and come back in that game. Alabama let that slip, and they carried that lackadaisicalness into this week in Nashville and got them beat.
The defense we saw from Bama in the second half against Georgia is the same defense we really saw from Bama through 4 quarters against an inferior opponent, right, to Georgia, and it didn't matter on Saturday. Now, how about Missouri, Brad? Just got dog walked by Texas A&M, and everybody's talking about, after they lose to Notre Dame earlier, here we go again with Texas A&M. 41-10, Connor Wigman came back, looked great. Where do you think Missouri drops? Because they've had so many near chances where they could have been upset, but they were able to find a way to win.
Yeah, I think Missouri drops outside of the top 15. I mean, we said all week, all of us at this panel, that this was a show-me game for both these programs. Texas A&M now hasn't lost since that opener against Notre Dame. And Missouri, remember all the explosive plays we saw last season offensively? They haven't had any of that. I mean, Theo Weiss's touchdown in the second half was the first touchdown scored by a receiver not named Luther Burden all season at Missouri. So the physicality right there is not there yet. The line of scrimmage, I think Missouri still has several other L's on the schedule. And, guys, this looked more like an 8-4, 9-3 team today than a playoff-bound Missouri team. I'm okay. Go ahead and write Missouri's eulogy because I just don't think they're good enough at the line of scrimmage to be considered in that playoff mix.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me with Missouri was Missouri's offense did not have any easy buttons today, right? There's no Cody Schrader, obviously, on this year's team, so they're not really able to be paced in the run game like that. A&M just covered Luther Burden. I mean, they just said, Luther, you're not going to get open on all these little pick plays and all these motions and all this sort of stuff. You're not going to get the easy yardage. If they throw a screen to you, we're just going to rally up and tackle. So what do you have then, Missouri? And they didn't have anything. They did not have anything at all, did Missouri on offense. A lot of credit to A&M on defense, and then A&M on offense. Connor Wigman came back and said, hey, the shoulder's all right. I'm the better quarterback. What Marcel Reed did against Florida was all fine and dandy, but he hasn't really done much in the last couple weeks. Wigman came in here and looked like QB1 to me.
And he needed to. He could not afford to not play because, to your point, Reed did a lot against lesser opponents, but that offense was humming under Reed, and it kind of jump-started this productive type season that we're seeing with A&M right now. But to your point, when you guys talk about Mizzou, I agree with everything you guys are saying, Rich and Brad. But in the beginning of this ball game, the ball bounced the wrong direction for Mizzou.
Penalties.
It was a pass interference that I'm a defender. They picked up the flag. They did against A&M. Because I mean, that jump started like the snowball effect coming downhill, and then it was a touchdown reception for Luther, a 60 or 70-yard touchdown. That was called back.
Yep.
Now, that was a legit penalty. But when you think about being on the road and just having the ball bounce the opposite direction and you don't have enough dues to overcome that, there lies the opportunity to get blown out. And that's what happened. And the one luxury Mizzou had at their disposal, guys, they had a favorable schedule. If they just can take care of the key games, right, they could have easily had maybe 1 or 2 losses on their schedule when you look at in totality their schedule and how favorable it was for them. Losing today, now the ball is starting to roll down the hill. It's going to get uglier. And for A&M, they're sitting in the catbird seat. Because guess who's number 1 in the SEC? A&M. They're 3-0 in conference play.
Right.
3-0 in conference play, Brad, so they can control their own destiny and make things very, very interesting moving forward.
Hey, any given Saturday, man, that is why we love it so much. And there's going to be so many more great matchups next week because we thought this week was going to be a tease, right? A breeze. Next week, we got Texas at Oklahoma, the Red River Rivalry shootout, okay? Penn State against USC. That kind of lost a little bit of its moxie because USC lost, but still an important game. Ole Miss against LSU, and number 3 Ohio State against number 6 Oregon. It is going to be so many cinematic, great aspects of Saturday night when it comes to Week 7 matchups. And coming up, on a week when you thought everything